Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Saturdays with Dad. Today we will be talking about the year 1971, not just for Prog but just for music all around. As you know, we've now finished our decade rundowns, which you guys seem to have very much enjoyed hearing about my dad's favourite albums of those particular decades. So yeah, the reason we're picking 1971 this year, or today, is because it's 2021 now, so it marks 50 years of all these albums, pretty much. So what are your thoughts on 1971, Dad? How was that year for you?
Well, 1971, I was 15 years old, and I was at school, and the year just exploded for me musically. I listened to groups that I'd not listened to before, and to me, it was really the porthole for music for me and my love of music. I think 1971 has so many seminal albums that we could be here the whole time. I'm sorry, you probably have loads of albums here in 1971 because it was so good. I've only picked out the ones that we have
That affected you the most?
That affected me the most and that I love the most, and a hell of a lot.
So, yeah, if there's something in here that maybe you thought should have been in here, that is the reason. It's not the best albums of 1971, it's Dad's favourite albums of 1971, so it's one person's opinion, not a general thing. Alright, so I did a video on Monday about my favourite prog albums of 1971, so we're just going to touch on some of your favourite albums, prog albums of 1971, and then we'll go into the lesser prog albums of the year. So here's a good start.
Yeah, one of my favourite albums of all time. If there was a top 100, this would be in my top 10. This is Tarkus by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I'm not going to bore everyone with the reasons why I love it. It's self-evident. Fantastic music, fantastic musicians. I actually like the track Tarkus with the epic, which is just magnificent, particularly the ending. But it's all absolutely fantastic. So this is Tarkus by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Although this was released in 1971, in 1972, I and a few friends went to see them play just down the road here in Wimbledon Town Hall. As it was then, it's now a shopping mall. And they were just incredible. They played the whole of this album. This is, to me, the best Genesis album. There are so many great albums by this band, but this one has, because of that concert, has a very emotional sort of thing for me. So this is Nursery Crime by Genesis. Oh, okay, so another great album, Fragile. This is Yes.
And this is the alternate cover from the Steven
Wilson mix. I think that Yes. I think the Yes album is my favourite album, but close coming up on the far rail is this one. Roundabout, just fantastic. You know, all of this album is just fantastic. I think this is the first album with Rick Wakeman in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Fragile by Yes. Great album.
And I think this is the last of the prog albums. And this was actually, there was an anniversary for this fairly recently. And this is a very special copy.
This is an album that both Neve and I hold in the highest esteem. This is Aqualung by Jethro Tull. Every single track on this album is an absolute corker. And I know it's not just Locomotive Breath, my God, you know, the actual track, Aqualung, Wandering Aloud. I mean, it's just a fantastic album. And it has to be in the pantheon of great albums, this. My favourite Jethro Tull album, but obviously another album, Thick as a Brick, comes up the rail. But this one just hits it for me. And of course, I mention every time I mention Jethro Tull, I have to get this in. One of the most underrated guitarists in the world is Martin Barre. His sound, that Les Paul of his, is just chunky, it's rocky, it's melodic, it's brilliant. So, I digress. So this is Aqualung by Jethro Tull.
So now we've covered the majority of the prog year albums of the year. We're just going to talk about the lesser of the prog. So here's our starting point.
The Rolling Stones' Sticky Fingers. Possibly my favourite Rolling Stones album. With a great Mick Taylor on it, who I think was the best guitarist with Keith Richards in the Stones, incidentally. And this is a fantastic album. I don't really need to go into it because I'm sure you guys have got a copy of it and everybody knows all the songs on it. But I'll shout out one song, Dead Flowers. I love that. I love that country feel, and Mick Taylor and obviously Keith guitar work on that is just brilliant. But this is a great album. For me, it's almost their best, but I still think for me, Exile on Main Street shades it for me. But nevertheless, a superb album. This band, particularly in the late 60s and up to the early part of the 70s, started off something incredible. Metal music, heavy metal, the Prophets of Doom and everything like that, and all the special effects and everything of the first album. But Master of Reality by Black Sabbath is one of my favourite albums. I still think the first one is better, but Master of Reality, Children of the Grave on this is just incredible. And you know, we all know so many bands were influenced by this band, not least Metallica. And without Black Sabbath, there wouldn't have been any metal or anything like that. And when I talk about Black Sabbath, I'm talking about Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Bill Ward and Geezer Butler. That to me is Black Sabbath. This is incredible. I mean, I just challenge anyone who's driving in their car and Children of the Graves comes on, doesn't really go ballistic when they hear it. This is what it's for. Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. Well, if that was seminal, woohoo! Led Zeppelin, they commonly known as Led Zeppelin 4 simply because it was their fourth album they released, but I think they just really called it Led Zeppelin, and great album. If you could listen to the next track in your car, you'd listen to Rock and Roll and possibly Black Dog. I love this album. Every track is fantastic. And of course there's a folk singer on, there's Sandy Denny's on one of the tracks here. But also our favourite song, my favourite Led Zeppelin song is on this album. It's not Stairway to Heaven, no, it's When the Levee Breaks. What a song, what a song. Just the beginning of John Bonham's drums and everything. It's just poetry. And this is a great, great album. So this is Led Zeppelin, the fourth album. Another British band. There are a lot of them in the 70s, I tell you, and good ones. So my favourite Pink Floyd album, bar none, full stop, Medal by Pink Floyd. The album itself is swamped by that colossus of a track, Echoes, which will go down. It's just fantastic. Words fail me how beautiful Echoes is. But the other side, One of These Days, wow. I mean, that is just awesome. I mean, the whole album is good, but it's swamped, as I say, by Echoes, which is just great. I just thought I'd get this one in. Government Mule with Ron Haynes did a Pink Floyd evening, and his cover of One of These Days is fantastic, but this one is the best. Oh yes, and another British band, Deep Purple, Fireball. Deep Purple were sort of rock band. They weren't so metal like Black Sabbath were, but they were just a heavy rock band. I mean, they had that organ sound of John Lord's. The album they released or not before that, but kind of before that, Deep Purple and Rock, is my favourite, just for Child in Time. But the title track of this album is brilliant, and they're just a great British band playing what British bands used to play in really good hard rock. And you know, all these bands that we're seeing now, like Tull or indeed Deep Purple, it's no surprise at all that they were huge in the States because of just the quality of music. And this little island just produced band after band of great rock bands in the turn of the 60s and 70s. So this is Fireball by Deep Purple. Well,
non-British band.
Everyone knew this was going to come. This is the Grateful Dead. Again, we're not worthy. My favourite, one of my favourite bands of all time. I won't go on about Jerry again because it's going to be boring. But needless to say, this is the live album. I think this is in Fillmore West in San Francisco. It's also the 50th anniversary. There is a release coming out soon, a remaster, which I have pre-ordered, plus the T-shirts. This is just great. I mean, the opening track, Bertha. What can I say? They opened that when I saw them in '74 at the Alexandra Palace. That I think was the first track they came up with. I was on my feet. They are great. Playing in the band, another great. The other one from the Anthem of the Sun, great. And then they have a side of almost folk country rock kind of stuff. Me and My Uncle. They do a version of Chris Christopherson's song, Me and Bobby McGee, and they did Johnny Be Good as well. They do a great song of the late lamented Ron McKernan, Pigpen, Big Boss Man, but Wolf Rat going down the road. Oh, it's just fantastic. It's the Dead. What's not to like? It's brilliant. Yeah, this decade has to have this group. Cahoots by the band. This was, to me, a good album, a great album. It's not, to me, in the same... I prefer the music of the Big Pink and also Stage Fright, which I adore. But this is a good album as well. I mean, the musicianship, Robbie Robertson, Levon Helm and everything like that, they're just, all of them, just fantastic musicians. And so I urge people to listen to this. This is Cahoots by the band. I think this next one's on everyone's list if they've got a brain in their head. This is the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore. Simply wonderful, simply marvellous. And this is one of the last albums with Dwayne and Berry in it. And it's just Hot Lanta, Stormy Monday. In the memory of Elizabeth Reed, sends shivers down my spine. And of course, Whipping Post. What a great album this is. If not the best, certainly in the top 3 greatest live albums of all time. A band on the top of their game. Just absolute genius from beginning to end. Other than that, it's pretty good, really. This is the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore. Coming back to our fair land. Now, Elton John, to me, in the 70s was one of the great, he's up there with the David Bowies and people like that. Again, his stuff in the 70s, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Captain Fantastic, and I saw him in 75 at Wembley with the Eagles and the Beach Boys, and he was just wonderful. And some fantastic songs, great lyrics by Bernie Taupin, and great musicianship by Elton. By far and away, my favourite part of Elton John's career was his start. I mean, some great stuff. Not least Tiny Dancer, which is just majestic. But it's all fantastic. It's early Elton John, and it's absolutely wonderful. So this is Madman Across the Water by Elton John. Talking of David Bowie, here it is, Hunky Dory. And this is so good. It is a very, very early David Bowie. This guy was the greatest influence on British music per se. He started so many different genres. He covered all the bases. His songwriting was brilliant. His musicianship is brilliant. His intelligence of surrounding himself with great musicians like Mick Ronson is brilliant. And this album is absolutely wonderful. Oh You Pretty Things, Life on Mars is on this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh You Pretty Things is great. Kooks, I love. And he was so ahead of his time, massively ahead of his time. And he was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Don't you think so, Bob? I recommend this album to everyone who's starting to listen to Bowie. I mean, between Neve and myself, we tend to like more exploratory stuff like Station to Station and Low and the Berlin years. But this is a fantastic album. Excuse the cat.
Oh no. All right, apologies for that.
Right. We're going through being Elton John and David Bowie, and so we're going straight back to San Francisco. A band formed by Dave Talbot and Marmaduke Dawson. This is pre-Buddy Cage. This is the first New Riders of the Purple Sage album. This is country rock at its absolute finest. I mean, you've got bands like Flying Burrito Brothers, the Eagles, even the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. But I mean, John Dawson, Marmaduke, had the great voice. And there's some great, Last Lonely Eagle, Henry was just fantastic. And also, I don't know, the beginning I don't know you, but it's, this is really good. I think Bill Kreutzmann could be on this album. Certainly Jerry's playing steel guitar. Oh, Mickey Hart is. And Commander Cody's on piano as well. So anyhow, this is to me one of my favourite country rock albums. And it's just a blinder. So this is the New Riders of the Purple Sage.
Same as the shirt.
Yes. Possibly the greatest female blues singer of the modern era. Her life tragically cut short. Janis Joplin and Pearl. This, just yet another 1971 album, which is just completely seminal. Oh, just Half Moon I love, me and Bobby McGee, Christopher. I mean, this is a testament to how much I love this album. That actually her version is better than the Dead's. Oh, there, I said it. But this is a fantastic, and as I say, great band. But Janis, what a voice, and so sorely missed. Talking about female singers and great songs, this has to be there, doesn't it? Carole King, Tapestry. I think every single person in the 70s had a copy of this album. Carole King, well, we all know from our great singles and chart-topping hits in America in the early 60s, what an unbelievable songwriter and musician she is. Then she came out with this. This had a much more folky feel about it, and she was sort of like living a life with, you know, with sort of like James Taylor and things like that. And this album is just superb. You've got a friend on it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's Too Late Love. That's also very good. And the actual track Tapestry is great as well, but this is another woman who had an amazing voice. So this is Tapestry by Carole King. I mean, if you look at the pantheon of great soul and blues people in the States, Marvin Gaye possibly would top it, I mean, Stevie Wonder would be coming up very close, and there'd be other stuff like Roberta Flack and of course Aretha. But this album is brilliant. What's Going On is just fantastic, the actual track. But my favourite on that is the Mercy Mercy Me, which is just so cool, just so laid back. What a great voice, what a great songwriter. Absolutely seminal album. It's just so beautiful. I recommend this to everyone, but I reckon a lot of people out there have got a copy of this because it really is just great music, and I recommend this to everyone. As I say, this is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. Yes, Santana 3, my favourite of the Santana albums. It had, this is not just the normal Santana band, you know, with Carlos and, you know, the other members. They also had a youngster that came, who tried out and he came on this band, Neil Chon. His sort of rock influence was brought to this album, and in tandem with Greg Rowley and the other great Santana, Chapito Arez, and the other great Santana musicians, and they produced this album, Toussaint Louverture, which is just one of my favourite songs of theirs. But you know, Batuka, I've got Somebody to Depend On, Guajira, which is absolute. It's just like hot Mexican music. I mean, Guajira is fantastic, and this is the album I think which is the best Carlos and the boys produced. This is, and of course, one quick thing, I forgot one person, Mike Shreve, my favourite drummer of all time. So this one is Santana 3. Going back to England and the East End of London. So this is Humble Pie. This is Rocking the Fillmore. And this is a Stevie Marriott of the Small Faces. Peter Frampton is on this. This is a great album. This is another truly great album. You hear the great thing about it is you hear all this band, or I Walk on Gilded Splinters, you know, the Dr. John song, and at the end of it, you know, you think, oh, this band is from somewhere in the southern states. Are you all right then? You hear Steve Marriott's Cockney voice coming out. It's just brilliant, and all of it is fantastic. And you know, Pete Frampton's guitar on this is excellent as well. If you want a good sort of like up there with the sort of like Allman Brothers feel. Allman Brothers were a bit more sophisticated in their music. Humble Pie, just raunchy rock blues, which is, this album sums it all up. So this is Humble Pie, Rocking the Fillmore. I reckon everybody who watches this video times a billion has a copy of this album. I won't go on too much about it because everyone knows this album. It's one of the biggest selling albums of all time. But again, it's there because it is such a wonderful album. It is actually my favourite Simon and Garfunkel album, and for one track, I just love The Only Living Boy in New York, which is just beautiful. But I could go on and wax lyrical about the title track and the Boxer and things like that, Cecilia, but this is just a great album. I mean, Art Garfunkel, what a voice, and you know, and Paul Simon's got a great voice, but what a composer. This is absolute must for anyone. This is Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. One of these singers that came around in the 70s and was very much under the radar in so many places, not least in this country, was Judy Sill, and this is the self-titled album. And I tend to like the female vocalists more than male vocalists because I just think they have a sympathy in their music. And you know, this poor girl, she suffered so much, which I won't go into, and she came from a broken home, and with all of the troubles that she had, she still managed to understand how music is performed and written and everything. And to be fair, Graham Nash was the one that really spotted him and recommended her to Asylum Records. But this first album is just beautiful. I can't go on how beautiful it is. There's a track on here which the Turtles covered called Lady O, which is brilliant. And Then It Happens. Jesus Was a Crossmaker, which just destroys me. It just destroys me. And this is a seminal album of brilliance. This is Judy Sill. One of the few bands who I'd say my favourite album of theirs is their last album, and that's The Doors. I love this album. This is so brilliant. And what a fitting epitaph for Jim Morrison was Riders on the Storm, to sign off like that. But the LA Woman isn't just Riders on the Storm. It's got so much L'America, Love Her Madly, Crawling King Snake. It's great. It's all really, really good. Even though, obviously when you when you listen to it, you listen to Jim Morrison, he's not exactly sober when he sings through it. But I mean, if you take that all away, that's just fantastic.
Last album on our list today.
High, Low and In Between by Townes Van Zandt. I come to Townes Van Zandt late. And the reason why I did is so many people that musicians and writers that I love his music, including Stephen Wilson actually. Again, overtly country, and a man from Texas who didn't really fit in that state and had to go to live in California, but wrote some amazing songs. I think Blue Ridge Mountains is great. I also like Highway Kind and No Deal. I mean, he's a bit sort of, although he's sort of like Texan and sort of country, there's a lot more sort of folk in his music as well, and his sympathy for the struggles of working immigrants in both the southern states and sort of certainly in the Texas Panhandle was sort of almost Woody Guthrie like, and the people that love Townes Van Zandt, you've got people like Bob Dylan, Chris Christopherson, Lyle Lovett, Jerry, as I said, Stephen Wilson, a lot of people who are very young like this guy, and he is a guy who is completely under the radar in so many ways. It's certainly in this country, but this album is magnificent. It really is. And so this is High, Low and In Between by Townes Van Zandt.
And that finishes up our video today. So anything to finish off with?
No, not really. I've enjoyed doing it. It's been a bit of a way, like a trip in the past.
Going back
and
for
it's
the time.
great to go back with it and share it with you. As I said before we started, I'm sorry. 1971 was such a great year that I'm sure I've left off a whole load of albums that you guys probably like, and if I haven't put them in, I'm sorry, but these are the ones that I like the most. So there we go.
Yeah. So Monday, back to Prog Mondays, and yeah, I guess I'll see you all then, and you'll see Dad next Saturday.
Absolutely.
See you then.
See you. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.